Charles Moralle. In Sheffield, England, Charles Moralle stepped into the cage during a circus performance in 1872. He had been drinking before the act, something the handlers noticed but did not stop. The crowd of hundreds pressed close to watch as he cracked his whip and shouted commands. At first, the lions obeyed, pacing and sitting as ordered. Then one lunged. Moralle tried to push it back, but the other cat joined in. Within seconds, both lions were on him, claws tearing into his chest and throat. At first, the audience laughed, thinking it was part of the show, but the laughter ended when Morelle's screams echoed through the tent. By the time keepers managed to pull him out, his body was shredded. Charles Morelle's death became infamous, a reminder of the dangers hidden behind the circus spectacle. Sara Guyard-Guillot. On June 29, 2013, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Cirque du Soleil aerialist Sara Guyard-Guillot. She was 31 years old, a mother of two, and a veteran of more than 20 years in the circus. That night, the theater was packed with nearly 2,000 people, performed in the show Kai. Sara was suspended high above the stage in a battle scene, her harness keeping her attached to the rigging. Then, suddenly, something went wrong. The harness malfunctioned, and Sara slipped free. She fell 90 feet into the pit below. Audience members first thought it was part of the performance, until screams filled the theater. The music stopped. The stage went dark. Emergency crews rushed in, but Sara was already gone. The death of Sara Guyard-Guillot was the first ever during a Cirque du Soleil show, and it shook the company to its core. Oleksandr Zhurov. In 2009, at a children's matinee in Kyiv, Ukraine, high-wire performer Oleksandr Zhurov stepped onto the wire stretched above the circus ring. He was a seasoned acrobat, known for crossing the wire without hesitation, even at dizzying heights. That afternoon, dozens of families sat in the audience, children cheering as he balanced carefully overhead. Then the wire shifted beneath him. Oleksandr lost his footing. He reached out to steady himself, but it was too late. His body dropped from the wire, plummeting toward the net. The net collapsed under the force, failing to hold him. He struck the ground with a force that echoed through the tent. Parents grabbed their children as silence fell. Oleksandr Zhurov was killed instantly, his death sparking an investigation into faulty equipment that left the Kyiv circus under heavy scrutiny. Jenny the Acrobat. The Barnum and Bailey Circus was touring America in 1872 with its newest sensation, a young acrobat named Jenny. She was known for her daring high-wire walks, balancing without a safety net as the crowd held its breath. One summer night in Brooklyn, Jenny climbed the ladder to the tightrope strung high above the ring. The music stopped as she stepped out, each footfall deliberate, the spotlight catching the sequins on her costume. Halfway across, her body wavered. For a moment, the audience thought it was part of the act, until she lost her balance. Jenny plunged headfirst into the sawdust below. The impact snapped her neck instantly. Gasps turned to silence as the ringmaster tried to calm the crowd. Jenny was dead before the clowns could even reach her. Her death was one of the earliest circus fatalities ever reported in the American press. Colleano's rival. In the 1920s, tightrope walkers were desperate to match the daring of Colleano, the Australian known as the Wizard of the Wire. Colleano had perfected the forward somersault on a rope, a trick no one else could do. One rival performer attempted it during a packed evening show in New York. The rope swayed under his feet as he gathered himself for the jump. Gasps rose from the crowd as he leapt, twisting his body in midair. But when he reached for the rope, his hands missed. He dropped like a stone from 30 feet up, crashing into the wooden boards of the ring. The sound of impact silenced the band in mid-note. The performer's spine was broken instantly. Stagehands rushed forward with stretchers, but he never moved again. His failed imitation of Colleano's signature stunt ended his life before thousands of spectators. Lillian Leitzel. On February 15, 1931, in Copenhagen, Denmark, circus legend Lillian Leitzel prepared for her act on the Roman rings. She was 40 years old and one of the most famous aerialists in the world, known for spinning high above the crowd, twisting herself again and again until the audience gasped. That night, she climbed into the rigging, her sequined costume glittering under the gaslight. She swung out into the air, gripping the steel chain with both hands. Suddenly, the chain snapped. In a single moment, she fell 45 feet, crashing onto the hard floor below. The crowd screamed as performers rushed to her side. Leitzel was still alive, but her body was shattered. She died hours later in the hospital. The death of Lillian Leitzel marked the end of an era for the Queen of the Trapeze. Eva García. In 1978, at a circus performance in Madrid, Spain, trapeze artist Eva García prepared for her act on the double trapeze. She was 25 years old and known for her daring mid-air transitions with her partner. That night, the tent was packed, the lights fixed on the glittering bars above the ring. Eva swung out into the air, her partner ready to catch her. She let go, flipping gracefully as the crowd gasped, but her hands missed the catch. For a split second, her body turned in the air before she plummeted toward the ring. She hit the ground with a sickening thud. The band stopped playing as silence fell over the audience. Eva never got up. Paramedics rushed into the ring, but she was already gone. The fall of Eva García remains one of the darkest moments in Spain's circus history. Dessi Espana. On May 29, 2004, In St. Petersburg, Florida, Cirque du Soleil performer Dessi Espana took her place on the aerial silks during a performance of Varekai. She was 32 years old, born into a family of circus performers in Spain, and famous for her fluid, dangerous drops through the silk. That night, the audience watched as she climbed high above the stage, twisting her body through the fabric. Then something went wrong. The silk slipped, and she lost her grip. She plunged 30 feet, landing hard on the stage below. Gasps turned to screams as the music stopped, and the spotlight froze. Dessi was carried away, still breathing but gravely injured. Hours later, she died in the hospital from spinal trauma. Dessi Espana's fall was the first onstage death in Cirque du Soleil's history, a tragedy that stunned both audiences and the company itself. The Flying Wallendas. In January 1962, the legendary Flying Wallendas took to the wire in Detroit, Michigan. They were famous for their breathtaking human pyramids, performed without safety nets. That night, they attempted their most dangerous feat, a 7-person pyramid stacked high on the wire. The crowd held its breath as the family climbed, balancing poles swaying under the lights. For a moment, it looked perfect. Then one performer lost his footing. In a heartbeat, the entire structure collapsed. Bodies rained down from the wire, slamming into the ground. Screams filled the arena as children cried and parents tried to look away. 2 men were killed instantly, and another was left paralyzed for life. The survivors scrambled to safety, but the chaos in the tent was unforgettable. Yet even after the disaster, the Wallendas returned to the wire, refusing to let tragedy end their legacy. The fall in Detroit remains one of the deadliest accidents in circus history. Henry Lippart. In October 1901, trapeze artist Henry Lippart performed before a packed tent in Baltimore. He was known for dazzling flips and somersaults, a man who seemed untouchable in the air. That evening, he climbed the ladder, waved to the crowd, and swung out on his trapeze. The band played a march as he built speed, his body arcing higher with every swing. Then came the moment everyone waited for. He released the bar, flipping gracefully toward his partner's outstretched arms, but his hands slipped. For a fraction of a second, he hung suspended in air before plunging 50 feet to the wooden boards below. The sound of his body striking the ground was louder than the music. The band stopped. Women screamed. Ushers rushed forward, but there was nothing to be done. Lippart's spine was shattered instantly. His death was reported across the country as one of the most shocking circus accidents of the era. Massarti, the lion tamer. In 1872, Italian lion tamer Massarti stepped into the cage in Bolton, England, to face 6 lions. He carried only a whip, confident in his control over the beasts. The crowd of hundreds leaned forward as the animals obeyed his commands, pacing and sitting as ordered. For a moment, it seemed routine. Then one lion lunged, sinking its teeth into his arm. Massarti tried to fight back, but another cat joined in, dragging him down. At first, the audience laughed, thinking it was a trick, but the laughter turned to screams when they realized it was real. The lions tore into his chest and throat as his cries filled the tent. Keepers rushed in with iron bars, striking the animals until they pulled back, but it was too late. His body was unrecognizable, shredded on the sawdust floor. Families fled in terror, trampling benches to escape. The bloody spectacle became infamous across Victorian England. Thomas Neess. In 1973, Danish daredevil Thomas Neess prepared to be launched from the human cannonball in Copenhagen. The cannon rolled into the ring to thunderous applause. Neess waved to the crowd, climbed inside, and braced himself as silence fell. The ringmaster gave the countdown. Then, with a deafening boom, Neess shot into the air. His glittering costume caught the light as he soared high across the tent, arms outstretched like a bird. The audience gasped at the spectacle, but then the gasps turned to horror. He was flying too far. The safety net had been placed too short. Neess sailed past it, his body arcing downward. He struck the ground headfirst with a sound that silenced the entire tent. Parents covered their children's eyes as ushers rushed forward, but there was nothing anyone could do. Neess was killed instantly. The troupe was so shaken they dismantled the cannon that very night, retiring the stunt forever. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.